To this first, the Human Rights Commission has begun its hearings into July's riots in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. Over 350 people died and several more shopping malls and warehouses were looted. For more on this, we're now joined by the Commission's CEO, Mr. Tseliso Thipanyane, who joins us to give us an update on what's been happening at the Commission. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Thipanyane. I think before we get into what's to be expected in terms of testimonies and hearings this week and next week, let's just understand why these hearings are even important to begin with. What are you hoping to achieve and get out of these testimonies and investigations after you've conducted all your data?
Good morning to you and to your viewers, and thanks for the opportunity. Our ultimate aim as a Commission is to ensure that this tragedy never happens again. As you've pointed out, over 300 people have died. We have lost over 50 billion to our economy. And therefore, this has been a massive violation of human rights. And we as a Commission have a mandate to ensure that, we find appropriate redress where there's been human rights violations. And this week, for example, we're hearing evidence from many victims, who were victims actually of racial killings in Pietermaritzburg and Durban around Phoenix areas. And up until now, a lot of people have not even received proper support for the tragedy they went through. And of course, we are also concerned about the role of the state, especially the police, as to why did this happen, but also what is being done to bring to book those who have caused all these issues.
Right.
And of course, we do also want to bring reconciliation between the groups where racial violence happened.
Are you able to give us an example, perhaps, Mr. Thipanyane, in terms of the evidence you've heard this week alone from some of the loved ones of the victims, or even the victims themselves?
Yes, we had the victims, actual victims themselves,
right,
who were victims of those racial killings. Some people have lost their loved ones. Others have been injured and maimed. There's a woman who's in hospital, crippled, and people have lost their property. And many of these people have not received care and support. But of course, there are also other victims, who are victims of looting in Gauteng and in KwaZulu-Natal, who also have to be attended to.
Yeah. So the victims are testifying this week. Next week, though, I understand you're expecting government officials to come and testify.
Yes, we are expecting a whole lot of government agencies, from the police, intelligence, the premiers as well of the two provinces, and the president, hopefully, and all other relevant government agencies, NPA, just to give us a broad picture as to what happened, what went wrong, but also what is being done to ensure that, this never happens again, but also justice prevails in our country. Absolutely. And the rule of law is upheld.
It should be very, very, insightful and important and significant to have the likes of the president there to give testimony as to what happened, what could have happened better, how do they plan to ensure this doesn't happen again, as you've mentioned before, but also understand that, according to you, and as far as you're concerned, these hearings are binding and should be, of course, reviewed by a court of law.
There's a constitutional obligation in terms of Section 181 of the Constitution for all organs of state to uphold the dignity of the Human Rights Commission. So when we make findings, we expect that, the government to basically implement and effect those recommendations. Unless they are of the view that they will not accept those, then they must go to court and get a review of our findings. But certainly in the past, few months, we have seen increasing cooperation between us and the government. But secondly, in terms of our act, it is a criminal offense for anyone to undermine and interfere with the work of the Commission.
Right. And where there are human rights violations, what consequences, of course, should be expected then? What work then does the Commission do in that regard?
Well, on one level, we expect the law enforcement agencies, to deal with the criminal activities. At the same time, those who are victims of this violence, who have suffered loss and harm and property, we need to find a way of how this violation could be addressed. It's our mandate as a Commission. That's why we're having this hearing, to find out exactly what happened, who are the victims, and to what extent can they be assisted by us or other agencies.
All right, we'll leave it there. Mr. Tseliso Thipanyane, thank you so much for your time this morning. The Commission's CEO talking to us about, of course, what's been heard at the hearings just this week alone from victims, those, of course, whose shops have been looted, those who unfortunately had lost loved ones, who had been violated. But next week expected as well is government agencies, as we've heard there, and hoping, of course, to keep you updated right here on eNCA.